I told you it wasn't a warm up. That's right. It's me, Joe Big House Kenn, and you are back on Inside the House Words Win Wednesday. Pre-activity prep, a hot topic on one of my Instagram posts that went crazy viral. People calling me crazy, telling me I'm making stuff up. But then here's what happens in the last few weeks on social media. Two of some of the most premier coaches and therapists in the world kind of agree. One is the ready state, the master, the supple leopard. Kelly Starrett giving me a major shout out on pre-activity preparation. He even brought up pre-activity priming. And then the other coach, Stuart McMillan, who's one of the top track and field coaches in the world, he consults with numerous NFL teams. Even though he still called it a warm up, he specifically said it should be intentional. And the way he was describing it told me one of the ways you can be intentional is maybe you turn it into pre-activity prep, pre-activity priming, or what National Strength and Conditioning College Coach of the Year, Coach Matt Nine, said. He calls it performance prep. So there you have it. Three high quality coaches telling me that I was right. And the comments in Kelly Starrett's Instagram feed were way different than mine. So it shows you when certain people say certain things, how it can get construed based off of how their followers read it. Here are my issues with calling certain things warming up. And yes, I do call certain things warming up. When I'm training my 10-year-old grandson, we're doing a general warm up. It has really not much to do with the session. It's just doing certain calisthenic things so that he can get active before we start teaching him the specific movements that we're going to try to teach and implement so that he can be capable and competent in everything he does when it comes to structured strength and conditioning exercises. Traditional warm-ups are primarily general, right? They're going to get the heart rate up and you're going to break a lather. There's very little specifics to do. A lot of times it's random and it's not connected to the sessions. The PAP is highly structured. It's athlete centered. This is the key when you have an athlete that's specifically coming off an injury or based off screening processes or testing and evaluation needs specific needs compared to the generalizations of specific exercises we use in an intent-based preparation to get ready for the specific session. A lot of times you see athletes going through the motions. Again, another post by Stuart McMillan where he was calling out coaches for being on their cell phone during warm-ups. If a coach is on their cell phone during a warm-up, do you think the kids are actually going to put in the intentional efforts they need to get something out of it? The key to this day and age to me is language. And Kelly Starrett said a couple of things that I came up with the term from it because he said it was a sensitivity to language. Well, why wouldn't we call it language sensitivity? And that's what I see a lot of times with athletes in this day and age. Once you put this in place and explain to the athletes the difference between warming up and preparation or performance prep or performance priming or pre-activity prep or whatever types of terms you think can be effective in getting your point across to the athlete, that is something you should think about because everything to me has to have a point and has to be purposeful. I always try to say when we're designing our plans, can we build a specific program or plan that is purposeful and we're not picking things that I would consider the athlete's waste of time? Because if it's wasting the athlete's time, it's sure going to waste us as coaches' time because then the athletes are going to fight you, they're going to debate you. If we can build a holistic program based off pre-activity preparation, leading into the main session, I think we're going to have a more quality session and the athletes are going to benefit where it means the most on the field, court, track, pitch, etc. Those are the keys. And I truly believe this reframing, this refocus on what most people call warming up, that terminology change to me is different. If I did the same exact things that I'm doing in pre-activity prep and still called it a warm-up, I don't know if I'm getting the same efforts from the athletes, the same exact athletes. So I think there is what my friend Adam Fight likes to say, a nomenclature shift in how we speak to our athletes and how we get certain specifics coming across. Most athletes, they don't care about warming up, but they do care about things that are going to get them better if you explain it to them. And I remember back when I first started in strength conditioning, especially in the weight room, there wasn't even a general calisthenic warm up. It was grab your card, 80% of squats, boom. You squat 500, boom, there's 400 on the bar, let's roll. Which brings me to another reframing of terms where some people call them warm-up sets or sets that climb to get you to your top working set in the weight room. We call preparation progression sets because we want you to focus and attack with the same purpose and intent from the preparation set 1 as we climb to work set 1. Every set you are preparing and refocusing your mind and getting the movement patterns dialed in and getting coached through those prep sets so that when you get to work set 1, you are mindfully ready to attack that load with purpose and intent. So again, I'm not going to get much more into this debate. I was going to hold this particular Words Win Wednesday for another time, but when Kelly Starrett popped out and I heard what Stuart McMillan was talking about, and Stuart says too, here's something I'm going to read to you. This is something I got off of this, and I actually got notes today. The warm-up is the something. He spends most of his time, he said, when he consults, spends 90% or more of his time talking about what he still calls the warm-up. And it's not thinking it's something to do, it's what it is the something to do. Meaning, when you're building your warm-up, you should be building it to prepare the athlete for the session, not to build it, like we said, what a general warm-up is. Just some randomness that has nothing session specific. We're just going to build the heart rate up. We're going to get the lather going, and I'm going to stay on my cell phone while the kids lollygag, or what I said, foo-foo around a warm-up. I think the foo-foo is what turned people crazy on my term of pre-activity prep versus a warm-up. Our specific warm-up, so you understand why I reframe this, is very structured. It carries up to 7 different subcategories. The first being, and this is something that I evolved from Mike Robertson, one of my great friends, is 7R method to programming. Our pre-activity preparation plan has 7 subcategories that can be instituted into the program based off of time and need and sport. So the first 2 parts of it are what I call player choice or optional. This is where the athlete can determine whether they actually want to or need to do this before we head into what I call the main block of 3 and then the back off other 2. So the release, which is your self-myofascial release and foam rolling type of movements, that's an optional choice for the athlete. If we were starting at 8 o'clock, the athletes would come in before 8 o'clock to start that pattern. The next is reset. That's some of the PRI breathing techniques. It's rolling, rocking, crawling, etc. We may do some general like quadruped series stuff as part of a reset and some upper body mobility work. That could be considered the reset. Those are optional. When we start the session, we start with our big 3 pre-activity prep categories. It's root, reboot, and readiness. Root, that's our core work. Reboot, that's our activation work. Readiness is our specific drill work or movement work or exercise work that we feel is deemed necessary at high volumes, 15 to 25 reps, to get you prepared for that specific priority 1 training block when we hit the main session. Then the optional ones, and one I really don't like to call optional is reinforcement. That's our head and neck work. I believe all athletes need to work head and neck, and that can be varied depending on how contact or impact demands set on your sport. And then there's also reactive measurements, which is your plyometric or jumping or throwing that we may put in to the pre-activity prep, but a lot of times we may pair that or utilize reactive work as a tiered exercise in the main session. But that is our 7 category blocks to pre-activity prep. Where it gets athlete specific is, again, if an athlete has compensation issues coming off an injury, a lot of the readiness and the reboot work is specifically determined by either our athletic trainers, our physical therapists. So that's a key component to our breaking down our pre-activity prep into these categories. Again, the reactive work could be done up front. A lot of times it could be paired. A lot of the times it could be a standalone within the strength and conditioning program. Reinforcement, although I don't count it into the big 3 mandatory, so to speak, it should be mandatory. And then the release and reset work, that's optional. If you are in the private setting, when time is not necessarily a factor and you can build your sessions as long as you want, those could be added in as mandatory, so to speak. But in a team setting, when you're on a time crunch, and you are on a time crunch in the team setting, that's the hardest thing to learn when you transition from private to team sports and you're on rules and regulations, is how do you cut down all the cool stuff you were doing in the private sector and do it in a organizational team sports setting that has CBA type rules that specifically tell you how many hours an athlete can train or be in the building. So that's my take on why it's not a warm-up. It's either pre-activity preparation, performance prep, pre-activity priming, performance priming. And if you are doing specific structured warm-ups, I seriously consider changing the name and your athletes will be more purposeful. This is Joe Kenn. Like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. This is another Words Win Wednesday. Until next week, Words win.